Brings me to, and please keep your questions coming up here. There's a couple of interesting ones for you, Dr. Hicks, but this question relates, I think, to what Mark and Steve were talking about. I think the person was saying, instead of trying to grow our own workforce, which is looks like an uphill battle with the C-, why don't we just attract across other states and bring them in instead of trying to grow our own? And what would make us an attractive place to bring them in and forget about growing our own? What do you think about that?
Gosh, I think we do. I think we do. I'm not a native Hoosier. The things that make Indiana attractive to people who don't live here already are the same things that would attract folks to any other state. You know, in many places, a relatively low cost of living, an opportunity for your housing stock to gain value, an opportunity for a job, and to live in a community that's attractive. The number one factor in that feeds back into human capital at schools. The location decision, what has made me move once has been the quality of schools. And I was so displeased with them in West Virginia that my wife said, well, we can't find one here, look for a job, Mike. And so we left. And I think that for somebody who's, this is the 14th state I've lived in. So this is close to a record for me, 36 months. But I think...
we want you to stay.
I intend to. So my wife's a native Hoosier. So, but the point I think is that for attracting people, we attract a ton of people to Indiana. And I often say this in Muncie, gosh, what a gift it is for Indianapolis, Lafayette, Bloomington, Muncie, South Bend, and a number of other places to have this number of young people here. If you had communities that also worked on the things that mattered, but the number one thing that matters to people who relocate with families are the quality of the schools that nurture their kids.
Well, there is a question and follow-up then for you, Dr. Bennett. You know, we know from some reports that a very high percentage of the students who do leave high school and go on to, say, Ivy Tech or require remediation when they get there, even when they have high school diplomas. Should there be some kind of a guarantee that a high school diploma means you know something when you receive it? And how can we help Ivy Tech and others not to have to spend so much time and money on remediation?
Isn't it amazing you even asked that question, that we should have a high school diploma that means something? You know, I'm going to say something in response to Steve that is really specific to this issue. Steve says manufacturing gets it. It's in the DNA to make that adjustment. I don't know if we have any superintendents here, but I'll probably irritate them again. We have an education... You must be
used to it by now. You're going used to it.
We have an education establishment, higher ed, superintendents, school boards, principals, teachers, that in their DNA, they don't get it. Okay, they do not get it. They do not understand that we have to change the way we do business. To your point, when we take a look at the fact that we are sending students to universities, and they are really, in essence, in many instances, paying their entire first year on remediation classes, we are doing students a tremendous injustice, and we're doing you a tremendous injustice. So the governor actually made that comment at the last roundtable, didn't he, Steve? That it's a breach of warranty when we send students out of high school and into college, and they aren't prepared for college level. Now, I also want to say, to not let the colleges off the hook, I also would contend there are a number of these situations where some of these required remediation courses are pretty useless. Okay, that I don't think some of the kids who are being required to be placed in those really should be placed in those. Okay, so let's not just place the blame on K-12. There is also an issue that it would be very nice if we looked at something like Kentucky did, which is say at a certain score, a student can go into college, into our state universities, without the expectation of remediation. Okay, but when we talk about poor K-12 accountability, there's only one group that has worse accountability, and that's higher ed. So we have to deal with that. So Steve, in response, while I think the huge disconnect is that we have a manufacturing sector that gets it. Our problem is the supplier to our manufacturing sector doesn't get it. They do not get the fact that what we need are higher standards, more flexibility. You know, I was reading the human capital piece about the use of technology. No one understood why we passed state board rule. Jim Edwards is here, David Shane was going to be with us. Passed state board rule, and we basically were the first state in the country to define a laptop computer as a textbook. You know, few superintendents got that. Vince Bertram down in Evansville rolled out 7,000 laptop computers to his high school kids. Okay? And at the same time, we need to increase accountability. So the idea of school corporations competing and thinking differently, the idea of school corporations being accountable and performing differently, and the idea of school corporations being more nimble due to reduced regulation, I think is really a huge piece of the answer for us to move forward.
Mitch, there's a couple of questions related, kind of shifting gears slightly, but not completely. A couple of issues related to what do we need to do in Indiana to sort of move up the food chain on the kind of jobs in manufacturing and logistics that we do attract, so that we're not just making things or packaging them, but we're actually innovating, we're designing them. Talk a little bit about your plans for that, or how we rate with that.
First of all, design and engineering happens from the shop floor all the way backward in the evolution of a product to the point of conceptualization. What this boils down to is math matters most. And Tony and I have talked about this a lot of times.
That math matters?
Math matters most, right? So it's not, you know, we don't lose jobs in Indiana because well, we're going to move to Indiana, but your people just, they don't know much about the great white whale.
The great white whale?
You know, no one ever had that conversation with me. No one ever said to me, you know, we were going to move to Indiana, but your bass players and your singers just aren't very good, right? People don't move to Indiana or don't move to America because we are not good at math. Not math and science, math. So K through 12 needs to be about math. And Dr. Hicks, math is the #1 issue. I mean, you know that. I mean, you cannot be successful in the 21st century economy without knowing math. Wilbur Wright and others who created much of the engineering revolution of the 20th century, right, did it pretty easily in their garages. You can't do 21st century nanotechnology in your garage. It's not possible. You need institutions, you need, like Purdue University or Notre Dame, to be able to do that. But all that is based on math. So our ability, I sell, or I'm just a salesman. Right? I sell whatever his guys create, right? And what, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I sell what.
Hope you're not on commission.
Start using go do vacuum cleaners.
Yeah. So we're selling whatever you're making, and what we need to do, what Indiana needs to become, is a state that is about engineering excellence. So if you see some of our IEDC paraphernalia, you'll see Indiana engineering excellence. That is an aspirational comment. It is what we need to be about, engineering excellence. If we do that, you will see wage rates increase. You will see a reputational change. So that's our big push, is to try to attract more businesses that are capable of creating jobs where that value exists. And we're doing a lot of stuff with Purdue and with Notre Dame, and to a degree with IU on that. But if you really want to see where the future of Indiana is, go to Lafayette and West Lafayette, Indiana, and you will see where the future of what Indiana needs to be. It is alive and well in West Lafayette, Indiana, and Lafayette for that matter. It's a remarkable transformation that community has made. The rest of the state can do that, but it didn't happen by accident.
Carol, let me jump in real quick, because I think let's go back to that CTE issue. We have to make sure that, again, moving from that old vocational model to career and technical education means make sure we have very high math standards embedded in career and technical education. And you know, as a former career and technical education principal, I know Charlie Feldhaus is back here, in the old model, we didn't think that way. We didn't think the fact that our kids who were taking our electricity class needed to be performing at pre-calculus levels. Now, they may not know it as pre-calculus, they need to be performing at pre-calculus levels. We stuck them in there and said, can you wire a switch? It's a very different model, and I think to Mitch's point, we have to make sure we have high-level math problem-solving skills embedded in career and technical education programs that lead to national, state, or industry-based certifications.
And so because because to some degree, at least in the near term, the education pie is not going to double in size, right? Realistically, but I'd like to see that pie recut and put less emphasis on things other than math. And if that means that English teachers have to go back to learn to become math teachers, so be it. But that's what the children need in the 21st century. If that means social studies is de-emphasized and math is re-emphasized, so be it. Math is critical to the state's long-term future.
And Tony will give you that $20 later.
I have to add something too. It's not simply a problem for K through 12 going to the workforce. The biggest remediation problem at the higher education level is mathematics. Mathematics, and it's not a problem singly of Indiana, but it's one that we care about. And my 5th grade daughter, who had an 87 percentile on her NWEA test scores, near a pass plus in math, elected to spend an entire summer doing math tutoring with 7 Indian students in Muncie, Indiana. Look, Dr. Bennett, there's a great way to fix this. Do what West Virginia has attempted. If your student goes to college from your district and needs remediation, the district pays the tuition bill. And if you want to hold higher education responsible, that may make me move, by the way, if I were in the
Okay, Dr. Bennett, can we get that done so we don't lose Dr. Hicks?
Now, if word gets back, that was my idea, so that's Dr. Bennett's idea. Simply enforcing that standard, and there are ways to do
Mike,
so.
I'll go on record as saying I agree.
Okay.
Steve, did you want to chime in here? And
Yeah,
then I've got a question for Mark.
I did, just quickly, kind of disjoint, I need to tie some things together, but as Mitch and Tony are talking about shortcomings and desires and the need to change, to correct something I said, manufacturing gets it, but manufacturing doesn't get the education piece yet. It's still the automotive model, okay? Put them through high school, get them over to me and I'll train them. Days are gone, absolutely gone. So to the point of you got to bring math in earlier, you've really got to have a bar that's raised at the high school level for math, absolutely true. And we need to do it in a way that's revolutionary, and I think that we can do that. And I would be really remiss, hate that word, I'd really be an idiot if I didn't say Verl's here, Jeff's here, Susan's here from Ivy Tech. These guys are rolling over boulders trying to figure out how to get to the next new product that works. And my hat's off to all of them and to all the others in the room that are working along the same lines. But we aren't talking about tweaking something. We're talking about flushing it and starting with a clean sheet of paper, and it's got to be a bold initiative. If we do that, the Hoosiers can do it.